Right, right. So what I wanted to demo too is like the application of this for uh, data visualization, because I think it's huge and it's going to totally change the industry. And for me, it's going to totally change how I teach my course. And so I'm starting with these templates. Like there's this one, and there's this one, and there's this one. And these are like three different sort of approaches. This one I just asked to edit with AI. I just clicked edit with AI and passed it in to Claude and said, make me a bar chart. And you can see the evolution of it here in the revision history, where each revision has a thumbnail. See, I started with the circles example, and then I prompted it, make it into a circle pack. And so it did. And it's like, wow, this AI stuff is totally, totally changing the game. I found that the AI works really well with React. And so this draws from one of the old starters, this React starter, which is just some basic JSX and HTML. So I started here, and then I just prompted it a couple of times, and it came up with this very nice structure. And I didn't just prompt it. I set up this, which is my preferred way of decoupling D3 and React. So the D3 is fully responsible for rendering the DOM within this Viz container. And so this main implementation is pretty portable. Like you could instantiate this inside of a Vue app or a Svelte app pretty easily by just defining the DOM element and then these two values, state and set state. And forgive me if I'm getting into too much detail, but the upshot is it works really well. And I found that the AI works best if you have a bunch of small files, because the way I implemented it is the AI needs to rewrite the entire file for all files that change. And so the smaller the files, the smaller the AI updates, and the fewer tokens will get used. And speaking of tokens, this UI is brand new, just landed today. Super excited. So I asked it to make that star field super fancy, right? That cost me 14 cents. And you can see if you use the cheaper models, like the Qwen 2.5 coder, it's only 2 cents. Like DeepSeek, 1 cent. But anyway, this is one of the sort of AI templates. The other one is this one here, which I took as a challenge to theme it really nice. And I found this style guide or like brand guidelines from the BBC, and I tried to apply it here, mostly with AI. I just said, make it styled like this, and I pasted the style guide text, and it basically worked. And this is purely vanilla JavaScript, but using that same API where you have a main function that takes a container and these two things, state and set state. And a lot of this is pulled out into this file called theme. So one of the things to make data viz editing accessible to non-technical people, the first step I'm looking at is just extracting all the configurable things into a file that's easy to edit, like easy for a non-technical person to edit. So you could do something like alt drag on the radius. This works, yeah. And this uses hot reloading. So the feedback is instantaneous. And the whole idea is like in a professional setting, if you have this page open, or if two different people have this same page open, then if modifications are made in one of these, like changing the radius, it updates in real time for everybody else. And so I want this to be used in professional settings. Like if you're on a meeting with a client and they ask you to change the font size, you should be able to just like change it, and then they can instantly see it. So that's the second AI template approach, vanilla JavaScript with a lot of different files. And the third one is with Three.js. So currently there's a pretty severe limitation where Three.js is one of those libraries that only has an ESM build and not a browser build. And so currently the only way to work with that kind of a library is to put everything in the index.html. So that's one thing I want to work on for the runtime environment. So like ideally we could split this out into separate files. And I want to show my friend EJ made a fork of this one along the lines of make it super fancy. And it delivered. Claude delivered. Like this is the 3D tree that's super fancy. It's just incredible. It has zooming and like it's just really amazing.